Ready, my friend?
Whenever you are.
Let's talk Jets winning football. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Anyway, it was a hell of a finish. One of those finishes that we really get to see in these parts. Lot to talk about. Lot to talk about. A lot of positives, a lot of negatives, but the ultimate ending, the caption, if there is a caption, is a win's a win. Thank goodness. Let's just move on to the next one. And you just know the team's just going to get better. It's early in the season. There's a lot of young guys. We're playing with our backup quarterback. So there's a lot of things. There's no question this team can improve upon. But it's the NFL. It's a tough league. It's very hard to win. So when you win on the road, the way that the Jets did, you take it, you move on, and then you hope this is a nice springboard that this organization needs, because they, if any organization needs it, they're definitely one of the few that does.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I know you haven't probably seen a lot of the other games, so I'm not going to say anything about them. But it was definitely a snatching victory from the jaws of defeat type of win. I mean, look, Nick Chubb goes down at the 2-minute mark or inside the 2-minute mark, and that bad boy's over, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, no shot to win there at all. And even when he scores, you're thinking, we're kind of,
that wasn't,
right. But I don't know what Ward was doing and Denzel Ward was doing in coverage against Corey Davis.
But that's like college coverage, with 1 minute left in the game. Yeah.
And the Browns did it last week also, and it was the Ole Matador defense, where I think all you're doing when you see the ball in the air is, please God, don't overthrow him, and please God, don't fall down, because he was a receiver open by 15 yards is such a rarity in the NFL. You can probably count in your hand during a year a receiver being that open, and that's how open Davis was. And clearly that was a springboard, as you mentioned. And we're going to go through it. A lot of positives, a lot of negatives. Clearly, look, when you get a 31-30, you get a win like that, there's a lot of up and down associated with it, a lot of positives on both sides of the ball, and honestly, a lot of negatives on both sides of the ball. So which side of the ball do you want to start with? You want to start with the offense? You want to start with the defense?
Well, let's go through the game. That might be a better way of doing it, because we'll probably talk up and down anyway. So, all right, early on, it was frustrating because they weren't getting to Brissett on those first several drives where they scored the early touchdowns. And it was the beginning of Jacoby Brissett, for the most part, for at least 90% of the game until late, looking like Bernie Kosar. It's frustrating. It's like, is that because our defense isn't good? And I don't think it necessarily was. I think it was more of, everything he threw, he was like on target with everything. And it's frustrating.
Wasn't he 22 of 27 for the game, if I remember correctly?
Actually, I don't even know if it was that. Let's see. Brissett was 22 of 27. And to tell you the truth, it felt more like 22 of 24. He was putting balls where guys were draped all over him, like right there. And Browns guys were coming down with it with their little toes. It was just it was frustrating. But there was also on the defensive side early where they just couldn't get them off on third down. It was bad on both sides, but for the Jets side, which is what we're talking about here, this is a Jets show. The defense could not stop them on third down.
Yeah, I think they were 8 for 15 on third down. Look, so a couple things. So I think Brissett just had all day, not a ton of pressure, in my opinion, associated with it.
And when he did have pressure, they couldn't get him.
Right, and I think almost as important, more important, was Chubb and Hunt were just gashing them. You couldn't stop either one of them in terms of a running attack, right?
Most of that came in the second half, though.
But again, the benefit of having the duo, right, as we know, which is what we're hoping out of Carter and Hall, right, is you can go with one guy and hopefully wear down the defense, and when the defense gets worn down
Carter
a little bit,
and Hall are going to be
you're hoping this is what it can become, right? That you can have two guys, you can alternate, where you can have two fresh guys in the backfield, right? And that's what they have with Chubb and Hall, right? Chubb wears them down early, and then Hunt just kind of beats them up, right? And Hunt's the more physical, in my opinion, of the two, which is weird because Chubb's very physical. But it looked like the offense, at least from the Browns' perspective, was almost doing whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part. Yeah,
at will, except for there was one set of downs with a little over 5 minutes to go where they pushed them back and they got the ball back. Now, granted, they didn't score, but it also prevented them from taking more time off the clock and kind of scoring then, right? Which I thought
that was the
a,
only time. Yeah,
was,
they had
that was the one sequence I thought where defensively they kind of stood up and put pressure on him,
once
stopped the running attack, and also stopped him. Was the two things I thought I saw in that series.
And it was and the funny thing was, it wasn't even a 3 and out. It was Cleveland got the ball, they got to like the 40, and they needed one stop to make sure they didn't get any more yards, and that's when they finally stopped them. Yeah, and that's when I think Mosley came up with his only play of the game, and we could talk about him once again not making enough plays to warrant his contract, because so far after 2 games he hasn't done anything.
Well, where has Mr. Williams been?
Quinn Williams hasn't been anywhere. Carl Lawson, Quinnen and Carl had a combined half a sack on that one play that happened in that stretch you just talked about.
Yeah.
So other than that, nowhere to be seen. That's frustrating. But again, going back early in the game, they couldn't really stop them. And the first big call of the game happened to be the beginning of what would become a very good special teams day, when they had the fake punt call and they completed the pass and it resulted on a touchdown drive. So that was really important. And by the way, that was Garrett Wilson's first touchdown. And it would turn out to be a hell of a football game for Garrett Wilson. So it was kind of it was kind of back and forth there early in the football game. But once again, you had the blown coverage. I don't know whose fault it was on the second touchdown when the receiver was wide open. It looked like Sauce might have thought somebody was supposed to go inside, and that kind of stuff is infuriating. So that's the second straight game that the team has given up touchdown passes and blown coverages. And I know Whitehead sure hasn't had a good start so far the first few weeks for the Jets.
No, I mean, look, I thought defensively overall, look, last week there was issues last week. This week, similar issues, some miscommunication, lack of a pass rush, lack of coverage from the linebackers, lack of pressure from getting through the gaps to be able to stop the running backs. Because again, you look at the numbers that both Hunt and Chubb put up. They put up spectacular numbers, in my opinion, running, right? So
again, a lot of that came in the second half. Yeah.
Right. But irrespective of where, right? They look, it was 14 and a half. Part obviously hitting Wilson with that touchdown late in the first was a huge play to make it 14-14. But look, we're looking at it. We're looking at the game with less than 4 or 5 minutes to go, and especially with 2 minutes to go, and we're going, oh well, another loss, right? But York misses a massive extra point there, right? Which
we're still in the first half, by the way.
What?
We're still in the first half, by the way. I know you want to move around.
It's 14 and a half, big touchdown there.
Well, before that, though, again, the offensive line, I think, actually did a pretty good job. The only really what we saw last week.
Well, okay.
They did a pretty good job. That is one of the best defensive lines in football, and I think they did a pretty good job.
I agree. I think they did a pretty good job in terms of protecting him. He was under some pressure, but I don't think he was under inordinate amount of pressure.
And he's going to get under pressure. You're just going to have to deal with it. Yeah.
But nothing untoward, right? No. His receivers had opportunities to get open. I don't think they did a particularly great job in terms of from a rushing attack perspective, in terms of creating holes for both.
Hall they did. Yeah, Carter really didn't. Hall was the one that actually seemed to have a little bit more.
But I thought they did a decent enough job, especially I thought the play calling was interesting. They went to Berrios on kind of like an end around type of thing to kind of give him room and some space. They got the ball. They tried to get the ball to Moore, though clearly Wilson was the number one target. And look, until Davis got the touchdown late, Davis really hadn't done much at all in that game either. But in the second half, he had a couple of big catches on those drives that kind of spurred him forward.
That's going to happen.
It was more in the first half.
Yeah.
I thought it was Wilson also. And clearly Flacco, I wouldn't say he's built a trust with Wilson, but you can see just the Wilson's ability to find space, get open, and create space to be able to get open, right? He did it on an inside out, that touchdown, right? He set the guy up perfectly and had a ton of room on the outside for the touchdown.
Yeah, and look, when you have 3 talented receivers, one guy is going to step up 1 week and so forth. Wilson did not come up, did not even do anything week 1. He comes out as a huge week 2. I think we're going to see that go back and forth with all 3 receivers all season long. And then you have, and what I was going to say was with the offensive line early in the game, the only really bad play was really the only bad play we've seen from Mitchell overall was the strip sack that led to the turnover, and the Jets couldn't even get any points late in the first half. That was it, really. But that was the one that they gave up.
And that was also just a great play by Garrett. I mean, I don't think Mitchell played great, but he had him somewhat outside. Garrett just made a nice play reaching around to knock the ball out of Flacco's hands. I thought Mitchell, compared to what we were expecting probably coming into the game, I thought did a really good job. I would say he neutralized them
for a rookie,
but he didn't necessarily get blown up.
No,
which is what our concern was.
And also, before we move on to the second half, let's give credit to LaFleur, because on that 3rd and goal, with 11 seconds left, or there was about 15 seconds, 16 seconds left, whatever it was, you got everybody for Cleveland going in the end zone. All right, you're going to have to throw the ball in the end zone, or, you're going to have to throw it away because the Jets had no timeouts left. And to be honest with you, I thought we were going to get one of those, all right, I don't see anybody, I'm just going to throw it out of bounds. And Hall comes popping out of the backfield, and he hits him, and he was wide open. Now, obviously, that has to work, because if he gets tackled, you're screwed. But that was a beautiful play call, and that was nice to see. And that gave him a big touchdown at the end of the first half.
Agreed. Yep. So 14-14 at the half. We're in. We haven't played particularly great, but you luckily think you've taken, I wouldn't say their best shot, but you've taken shots from both Chubb and also with Hunt.
Well, really, the first half was more Brissett than anything. It was the constant third down pickups and passing.
You couldn't get off
the field early in the first half. Yeah.
Right.
And then in the second half, we had a roughing the passer penalty for the second straight week. So are we going to get 17 now again this year? Is that how it's going to work? I mean, can we go a game or two without a roughing the passer penalty? And anyway, that set up good field position for Baltimore, for Cleveland on their drive. Eccles makes a really nice play, like one of the only really nice PDs in the game by the DBs, which forced the third down incompletion, and then Cleveland had to settle for the field goal. So that made it 17-14. Another thing that was really annoying were all the 5-yard penalties. I mean, the illegal man downfield, illegal motion. There were like 4 5-yard silly penalties that just were driving you crazy. And then when the Jets came back down 17-14, they had the holding penalty. I don't know who it was on. I think it was on Fant. I know Salah went nuts. I'm not sure exactly. Right. I think it was Fant. And that forced a 57-yard field goal try. And then part 2 of special teams coming through when Greg Zuerlein boots the 57-yarder. And that's what we've been missing here, is that big leg that can kick the 57-yarder.
Well, I mean, after last week when, as I said to you, all three of his attempts, I thought, started hooking left. This one, he actually went straight down Broadway, which was nice to see. I don't think he didn't get much lift on it, but he had enough just to get it, boot it straight down Broadway. Decent, really good distance, not a ton of height, but literally right down the middle. And all of a sudden you're going, okay, we're back in the game. It's now 17-17. Let's see what happens next.
Yeah, and unfortunately at that point, once again, they just couldn't stop. This is when the running game started to really come into play, and they just couldn't stop. And they also couldn't stop screens all day long. I mean, they must have thrown, 8 screens? I'm not exaggerating.
Like I don't remember many, but a lot.
And I would say 6 or 7 of them might have resulted in first downs.
It was Amari Cooper in the first half, and it was the screen pass in the second half.
It was crazy. And then the other thing, too, was if they lose this game, here's the thing. If they lose this game 31-17, 30-17, we're definitely talking about not just the defense, but once again, we're talking about Flacco not having a great game. Because at this point, he had like 3 passes in the game that were like, where is he throwing the ball? A guy's like wide open, and he's like throwing the ball 20 yards like over out of bounds, and it was driving you crazy for a little bit, including, by the way, when they were down a touchdown on that third down with about 3 or 4 minutes left, I think it was, and I think it was Davis cutting across the field, and he throws it across, and it's like 20 yards over his head. The guy's wide open. So he had some. So at that point, you're like, that's how quickly everything changed, which was just unreal.
So it's good. Look, as we said, down 24-17.
Yeah, Flacco throws the bad pass and they have to punt.
They get a couple first downs. Then we get 3 big stops. Then they punt. So Cleveland goes down, running the ball like crazy, just running downhill on us. And all of a sudden, third down was I think it was like, I'm not sure which down it was. First, it's little over 2 minutes to go. Chubb goes around. He gets down to the 2, and you're thinking, when you're watching, going, what if he's going to go down? And he cuts back inside, and he scores a like window dressing touchdown. But let's see what happens. And then York misses the extra point. Then they get the ball back, 30-17, get a first down, missed pass, and all of a sudden you look up, and there's Corey Davis so wide open that there's nobody in the screen with him.
Yeah.
When they show it on TV, and they're like, okay, 30-24, no timeouts left.
And by the way, at that point, when it was 30-17, and I do so much work while I'm watching all these Jets, the first game I'm watching on all the playbacks, and I'm working, and I've already given up. 30-17, so I've given up, but I've still got my corner of my eye, and I'm doing, so now I'm not really, with the Jet game, I'm watching every play, but now I've given up. Now I'm like starting to write and stuff and look at my other screen, and then I see this thing going on, and I turned around and looked, and I see him scoring a touchdown. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever, because it's got to get an onside kick. And they never work. So I didn't even, once again, I went back to my work. I had still no, my elevation, my blood pressure, my excitement level did nothing. There was nothing inside of me until I realized that they got the onside kick. Even for a minute or two, I was like, they're going to call a flag or something. Somebody was offsides. They're going to say something. Right. And I couldn't believe that the Jets had the ball. Then I perked up and I was like, okay, wait a second. This is interesting. Are they actually going to, I still didn't think they were going to finish the job.
And as you're watching it, you watch it. First of all, really good play by Will Parks to help keep it in bounds. But you're watching it going, first of all, if I'm the Cleveland guy, get out of the way. The ball was going to go out of bounds. If you didn't try to touch it, you probably would have had the ball go out of bounds and not have had to worry about it. Parks knocks it about, and you're going, oh, no. Make sure you recover it. And then all of a sudden Hardy comes in and somehow miraculously gets the ball when there's like 4 other guys in the neighborhood. And you see Bradley Manning, you see Garrett Wilson start jumping up and down like a madman on the sidelines after they recover the ball.
Yeah. And by the way, special teams play number 3.
Well, and again,
Man,
one more.
Making the onside kick.
I thought Mann actually had a fairly good game punting the ball after a debacle of a week last week.
Yep. He had 2 inside the 20, and then he had the onside kick, which was awesome. Yep. So again, at that point, you're like, all right. But I'm sorry. I'm just not getting excited until.
Because you're a Jet fan.
Yeah.
Because you're a Jet fan.
Until they actually start moving down the field, and you can start, and this is when you want to have, or you feel confident about Flacco. It's not too often, but he gets into this rhythm, and it doesn't happen very often. And when he does, he's very dangerous because he's a veteran.
And again, and here's partial negative. I don't know what number up to, but no CJ Uzoma. Conklin has
he didn't play in the game.
The tight end spot all to himself. And honestly, I thought he had an absolutely horrific game. A couple of fumbles he got lucky on, a drop pass. He made one good play, but boy, in my opinion, he did not have a particularly good game at all, Conklin, in that game today. I was like watching him going, dude, you have a shot with Uzoma out. And we're all been talking about how excited we are to have you here. And you've talked about how excited you are to be here. And what do you have? 2 fumbles that fortunately got recovered. At least 1 fumble that got recovered. I think there was almost a second. I know we had a drop pass.
Yep.
Huge play was you had Carter get out of bounds on a reception to keep a first down. I think you had 2 play. You had another play where I think it may have been a zone, but one other got out of bounds to get the first down. So as opposed to
Conklin had a catch.
Conklin had one, but then right afterwards, Carter had one where he got the first down.
Yeah.
On a second down and short, which was huge because now all of a sudden you don't have to use your timeouts. You're moving down the field. You have a fresh set of downs, and then obviously the pass over middle first down, and you're going, okay, we're in range. We got 1st and 10 at the 15. with about 25 to 30 seconds to go in the game. Let's see where we go. Missed incompletion first down, incompletion second.
Well, the second down one was the one that Flacco came this close to getting sacked.
Yep.
And if Garrett is able to trip him and he falls on the ground, game's over. I mean, they're going to waste 15 seconds. Game's over. So good play by Flacco to just get out of there and basically throw the ball in the dirt, get it out, and then live for that third down play.
Yep.
And then there you go.
Then
the rest was history.
A skinny post route by Wilson, who was wide open.
Think of a beauty.
Wide open.
That was awesome.
And then you're watching at the end. You're going. All of a sudden, you're looking and you're seeing
Jacoby time is left.
You're running Jacoby Brissett running
I know.
around.
He gets to midfield in like one play.
With 12 seconds to go, and this is after York hit a 58-yarder last week.
Oh, yeah. Game. You're like, okay, here it comes.
Then your favorite person makes the big play to end the game. The guy who you've been railing on for several years to do anything. And
make a play.
By the way, it was a horrible throw by Brissett. I don't know.
Well, they had 10 guys in coverage.
Yep.
one guy rushing the passer.
Yep. And with 6 seconds to go, so even if he knocked it away, right?
Oh, yeah.
The likelihood is you probably are in relatively decent shape there anyway.
They probably would have thrown like a 5-yard pass and then attempted a 60-something yard field goal.
And he hit, and his shot from 58 would have been good from 60-something last week.
Yeah. So that was huge.
With a huge pick.
Yep.
Takes a couple steps, realizes I better go down so I don't lose the ball, and game ending. And Robert Saleh has the biggest grin on his face, especially. I want to know if they asked it. I don't know in the post game if they asked him whether or not he cashed any of the receipts this week.
They didn't ask him.
Okay.
So yeah, that was another
because that would have been the question, obviously, right?
What's that?
That clearly should have been the question.
I'm sure that's going to be a question that more than likely comes up tomorrow, when everybody's settled in and everybody can kind of think about what they're going to ask them. Someone's bound to ask them that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was, again, look, there were just ton of mistakes. So one of the Till Davis's interception too, it's just this defense can't live without sacks and turnovers. They're not getting enough. And other than that, they do a decent enough job, but they're not getting the big game-changing plays from anybody yet. And that's what's missing from the defense. And that's where the defensive line's got to start making plays, because you have to force the quarterback to make bad throws and turn the ball over. And they just haven't had enough pressure yet from that front, from that. Especially, I expected. See, first game you have Lamar Jackson, and he runs all over the place. He's hard to sack. The second game, you do have one of the best offensive lines in football. Okay. But, when you're playing the Bengals with their weak offensive line, you have got to establish pressure. When you play the Pittsburgh Steelers with their weak offensive line, you have got to establish pressure. So in the coming weeks, that's what we have to see, the maturation of this defense take that next step with sacks and turnovers.
Yeah, I agree. And look, Cleveland's offensive line did a good job. We had really no pressure at all today. Yeah. As we talked about, a lot of guys were invisible, for lack of a better term. I don't think the line had a great game. Don't think the linebackers had a good game. I'm not sure if you can really hone in on any defensive back that really had a good game today. I mean, Brissett was just moving the ball up and down the field. The running backs, especially in the second half, were moving the ball up and down the field. They gave up 30 points. Clearly not a great game.
A lot of points to be given up to Cleveland Browns with a backup quarterback.
Offensively, they were until they had the two big drives late, you could argue that they left plays on the field. Conklin left a bunch of plays on the field. I didn't think Flacco had a great game. I don't think the offensive line was particularly good in creating holes necessarily. You look at the differential in rushing yards. I think it was almost 2-1 in the game, or relatively close to that event. But look, they got a lucky break on the touchdown by Davis, right? They got a lucky break on the touchdown by Davis. You can argue that the onside kick is a lucky break, but they took advantage of that break, because just because you recover the onside kick doesn't necessarily mean you're automatically going to go down and score. And they found a way to go down and score. And then at the end, when it got a little dicey, even though we thought we had it relatively locked, they made it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think any Jet fans thought they had it relatively locked.
They made their only real big defensive play. I mean, granted, you had the one series where they stopped them right after they gave a couple first downs.
That was it. Yeah, that was the big one.
They made the one big pick,
and
that was sufficient enough to get the win. So you take some of the positives. You recognize there are still a ton of areas of remediation that are needed on this team, and work is needed. But you sure as heck like seeing 1-1 in the newspaper as opposed to 0-2 tomorrow morning.
Oh, it's just and again, to think of the fact that the game was over. It was. You don't win these games.
I think victory from the jaws of defeat. I mean,
you just don't win these games. You get these. At least the great teams can win these games. They get lucky. They put themselves in position like this time after time. Teams like organizations like the Jets, when they're non-playoff seasons for whatever 11 and 12, they don't get these types of breaks. Now they have to take advantage of it. And I'm not saying they have to win next week, but you just got to come out of this with some momentum over the next month and put yourself in a position with a tough early season schedule to give yourself a shot with an easier schedule in the second half. And because you just can't have this as a throwaway. You can't be 1-3 in 2 weeks. If they're 1-3 after getting this gift, it's going to feel like we're going to be saying, well, we should be 0-4. That's what we're going to be saying. So they have to take advantage of it. I think they're going to, but we have to wait and see first. And then
there was one other bit of good news before the game, if you saw.
Before the game,
Zach Wilson was on the field throwing some passes.
Oh, okay, very nice. So we'll find out whether or not
he's progressing, right? Yeah. I mean, they don't look. Clearly, they're going to go eventually as far as he can take them. But the benefit of getting a win like this means that you're not going to hear the calls of you need Wilson back now. You need Wilson back now. Like 0-2, all of a sudden it'd be okay. Can you accelerate the time frame? 1-1, yes, you want him back, but you can not necessarily slow play it, but you can make sure that as opposed to him being, let's say, 90 or 95%, he has that extra week to hopefully be closer to 100% when he returns, which hopefully is going to be in week 4.
And it also gives you, as an organization, a couple of things. One, if you're fighting for a playoff berth this season, it gives you the opportunity to go when Zach comes back. Hey, you know what? If we were to lose Zach for a quarter, a half, a game, we have someone now we can believe in and trust for a small window. But at least it happened. At least he's got a win finally. I don't care how it happened. He's got a win, and that's the most important thing. And then also, this is just going to help later on, whether it's this year or next year. This is a young group of kids that they're learning how to win, and they're only going to get better from this.
Well, so the benefit is we've seen positives out of Hall, and you can see why he was so highly touted coming out, right? And why they view him as a complete back. He can catch the ball, he can run the ball, right? You see definitely out of Garrett Wilson, right? What Garrett Wilson can be, right? We haven't seen that much out of Jermaine Jackson yet. He had the half sack, but we still haven't seen a ton there, right? So that was the guy. And then I'm trying to remember who the fourth, technically quote unquote fourth first round pick was. Hall, Wilson, Jackson.
Gardner, you mean? Your first one.
Gardner. Look,
he's played well.
He played well. I mean.
Again, we don't know what happened in the blown coverage, but that's.
I don't know. I don't think he was as good this week as he was last week. But look, guys are going to go after him, right? He knows that teams are going to go after him. It's a matter of him learning on the job. And
we know what we got there. We know we got a stud.
I don't think Reed had a particularly great game today.
Who?
Opposite him, Reed. I don't think DJ had a particularly great game.
Again, I think no, and I think that one of the things that has really been hurting them more than anything have been the blown coverages. That not as much man, but the blown, whose fault, who didn't do this. Whitehead, as we talked about, has made some blunders, so and look, that's going to happen. These guys haven't played together before. It's not like a championship team that's been together. It's like the Buffalo Bills secondary that's been playing together for the past 4 years. I mean, you have to learn, and this is why early in the season, these kind of mistakes are going to happen. We just saw it happen to the Cleveland Browns in this game today with Davis. It's going to happen, and you just hope. The whole idea is you start cutting those mistakes out as the season wears on. So
hopefully so.
Yeah. All right. So next week we do it again because, as we said in our preseason show, there's like all 1:00 games or something like that for the Jets for like most of the season.
Yep.
If not, like, I don't know. Is there a 4:00 game? Do you remember? I don't even know.
Yeah, there was one late. I think it was like week 13. We looked at it like in the preseason. I think it was like week 13 or 14. That was like a 4:00
Isn't that around
game.
our bye? When is our bye? Isn't our bye late?
Something like that, yeah.
Mid-season late? Okay. So anyway, yeah, all 1:00. It doesn't matter. We come on late on Sunday nights anyway because I got to watch the damn replays late. Jan, appreciate it. Look forward to we're getting every time we do one of these post-game shows, we get closer and closer to letting everybody know when we are going to start our Ranger reports, but we still have a couple of weeks to go before we do that. So Jan, we'll talk more Jets football on next week's show, and let's hope we can go 2 in a row. Is that even possible?
It's possible. We'll see if it's feasible.
Let's see if we can do that. Thanks a lot, Jan.
Okay.